Yeah, you good? You good? Good evening. I'm hereby calling to order the Committee of the Whole meeting of January 23rd, 2023. May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Balestrea,
Present.
Mr. DeJohn,
Here.
Mr. Mano,
Here.
Mr. Monaco,
Here.
Mrs. Sabetta,
Here.
Mrs. Snyder,
Here?
Mrs. Teresi.
Here.
Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The purpose of this evening's meeting is to provide an update of the Aquatic and Community Project. We have Jason Nolde here to discuss Dominion Gas Line, running the lines to the new Aquatic Center, the Service Department concrete and the new gate, and approval of the changes of everything that's under $25,000. So I'll open up the meeting to Mr. Nolde. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. How are you? Okay, so we do have the three items that Council President had noted. I'm going to start with the gas line then first. So one of the resolutions for tonight is approval of the contract and the costs associated with the new gas line for the Aquatic Center. So with the addition of the new structure, the existing gas line that is there now, it does not have the capacity to service the new pool heaters and generator that's going to be part of the Aquatic Center. So this is the cost and the contract approval for that. We did have a line item in our budget tracker for this new gas line. The cost actually did come in higher, though, than what we had in the budget tracker, so we're utilizing the additional balance for the utility line item that we had in the budget tracker, plus some of the non-construction contingency to cover the costs associated with that. The second item was a change order request labeled Change Management 031 for AM Higley. And what that is as we were wrapping up some of the improvements with the service center, the service department made a request to see if we could incorporate or at least receive pricing to revise some of the pavement from heavy-duty asphalt to heavy-duty concrete, which would match some of the rest of their service yard, so that they could utilize that portion of the that service area, and in addition provide a new gate, security gate, as part of it. So we put together a proposal and received pricing for that work, and the cost incorporates the credit for not performing the asphalt work, and then with the heavy-duty concrete, the cost associated with that is over the $25,000, so we're seeking council approval tonight for that item, and that totaled $48,336.81. That would come also out of the non-construction contingency that we have in our budget tracker. And then the last item, we may provide some additional clarification at the next council meeting, but there have been some items that have come forward that are under the $25,000 threshold. So the mayor or GPD have the ability to approve some of the smaller pricing items, but we want to keep council updated with those as well. So those, some of the items that are included with that was some additional survey work that we had done along the west side of the site. That actually is going to be deducted from the A&E's contract as well, so there's really not a net increase to the budget, but it's an added cost to A.M. Higley. There was some revisions to the sanitary after we received comments from the Ohio EPA on the design. So again, that was some modifications associated with the piping and structures. There was a water tap fee. This was an item that we were carrying as part of our utility cost on the budget tracker, and it was going to be an owner's cost, but the City of Cleveland Water is requiring that the contractor carry these costs. They would like to see them pay it, so we're taking one line item from our budget tracker that was going to be an owner's cost and incorporating into Higley's contract with that. There was some revisions to circuit breakers that was on the main distribution gear. That was part of a design clarification. There was some changes that we did to the pool features, some of the toy features that are within the zero depth pool. And so there was a couple added costs associated with that. There was some rework of the sanitary at the existing, at the DeJohn Center. When we did the demolition, there was some blockage as well that the service department had made a note of, and there was some corrections associated with that. And then the last one was some modification to the storm piping that was noticed. So currently we're totaling about $46,000 of changes associated with that, but we can provide additional detail at the next council meeting. But we wanted to bring that to your attention. So, are there any questions on any of the council items?
Mr. Palestrina.
Thank you. Well, Jason, the request for the change from the asphalt to the concrete, that came from our service department
Yes,
directly?
correct. Yep.
Okay. And what did you say their use for that was going to be? They're going to put materials on the concrete instead of putting it on the asphalt?
So the original intent was that we extended the asphalt from the parking lot for the aquatic center to allow a semi to kind of back up into that space and then go to the rear of the aquatic center.
Excuse me, do you have a copy and overview of this area? I think it might be easier to explain for all of us to see it. Thank you.
While Jason's getting that set up, I just wanted to mention on the smaller dollar change orders that he mentioned, the legislation that was passed by council back in July said that we would bring those smaller items to council's attention as a resolution, so you can look for that next meeting. We'll actually have that resolution, and they'll all be spelled out for you in detail. So you'll have that detail for the next meeting. But since Jason was going to be here tonight, we wanted him to have the opportunity to answer any questions, to be able to at least brief you on the subject before you saw it on the agenda.
So is this in addition to these costs, or in addition to what we already passed back in July, or these are additional costs now? Or this
They
is what
are
is,
changes in the contract, so they are changes in either the scope or the cost, and we'll break that out for you. And because we didn't want to hold up the project for a small dollar amount, council passed the legislation that they could be approved by GPD or by the mayor, depending on that break
Under
point of the
25.
dollar amount, correct?
Right.
And so now we're bringing those all back to you, so the council is aware. We don't want to wait till the end of the project and bring it all in then, so it's like we needed to start bringing them in now.
okay, thank you.
Okay, so, yeah, the original intent, design intent that Level Heads had put together was this, allowing for a semi to kind of back up into this space here. So this area in the red was bid out as asphalt. And then, they could then come back here and service get back here to the, behind the aquatic center. But this kind of limits some of the ability for the service department to kind of maneuver through the site. And so they, again, made an ask if we could get pricing associated with that. And we had reviewed that with the administration at least, and they felt that it would be appropriate to bring that forward.
How does a truck get out once he's in there? There's a turnaround? No, to the rear of the pool.
Back up.
No, I understand. You said backing in and then pulling in behind?
Yeah, so now, in lieu of it, first off, I guess after further conversations, it's going to be pretty minimal when we do experience that, but when we do, the service department said that they could coordinate having the access through their space so that it could come around this way up and then turn around back in.
I mean, if you're changing that to concrete for a tractor trailer or whatever to back up and then pull down behind the pool, is that my understanding? Then where's the turnaround for a truck that size once they've gone down behind the building?
So originally, it was to come off of Marsal down
Yeah.
here and then pull in this way and then back.
Back up?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought you had said pull in, so I was concerned how they're going to turn around once they're down there, or they had to back all the way up.
Yeah, no, the turnaround would have been there, but in this case now,
Okay.
they're gonna come down, most likely through the service yard, up here and then back down.
Back in that way. All right. Thank you.
Does any council have any further questions? Mrs. Dressy?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Will they be doing any, two things, like trees on the Marsal side of the service department?
Yeah.
And/or are they going to be cleaning up the back of the service department that faces the highway?
Sean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but
It's always full of dumpsters and stuff, and in the summer, it's got the plows, and will any of that be
the
taken
trees
care
on
of?
Marsal, right?
I think you said that we were going to have trees on Marsal, but they're not planting them till,
Yes, so all those mounds where the gray fences, those will all have arborvitae
Right.
in them. That'll get planted in the fall of
Correct.
this year.
But on the Marsal side, right now, we have the mound up to the service department, the garage there. Are we going to plant any trees there that face Marsal, like when you're coming out of Golden Gate Shopping Center?
Oh, and there's currently some that are there, and some that are dying, they're kind of in
Right,
rough shape.
exactly.
Yes, yes.
So you're going to do something to make that look,
We have additional plantings up there along Marsal, yes.
thanks.
Need my Andy's card.
Wait, there's some pine trees and spruces, some are dead. There's big gaps, I just wondered if we were going to do something, if we're, going to beautify things, if we're going to do that area and/or the area that faces the highway. If you're driving by,
Yeah, I don't know how much we have
like-
facing the highway that that'll be back there by the service yard. So at this point, I don't believe we're
I think there was any change with that.
anticipating additional plantings there.
yeah, I just didn't know if, things get discussed and rediscussed. I didn't know if someone said, gee whiz, maybe we should, clean this up a little or whatever. Since we're saying, gee whiz, let's do the asphalt or the concrete. It was just a thought.
but this area that they want to put the concrete, it's not for like leaves, piles of leaves. I mean, it's literally for turnaround and for heavy trucks. It's not going to be for just more storage to throw things on top of, correct?
Yeah,
A lot of money.
let me see if I can maybe pull that up.
How many big trucks do we get? How many semis do we get that go back there? What would a semi be delivering to the service department?
Salt.
Is that a semi that delivers the salt or a dump truck?
It's usually semi. My understanding, it's not.
closed-in semi?
But how did they get in before? Through the old parking lot at the community center?
Yeah, so there was a loop there from the backside over by Golden Gate.
Right.
So they could go in one way out the other way. This additional concrete, I think, is gonna buy them some more breathing room in that area. It's tight, especially when that leaf pile is there. It chews up a lot of room, and so having more space, again, I can't speak 100% on it, but I know that they want more breathing room back there, and this helps them get that.
Mrs. Tressi?
Well, I know it's probably been hard to see that, but that leaf pile gets pretty large.
And is the same depth and the ODOT concrete, is that used everywhere? I mean, or will a semi-truck that's pulling on to our other concrete, is it going to damage it if we're doing semi-trucks?
Yeah, so the concrete that we're utilizing here would match what the rest of the service yard currently has for their new layout.
So that those semis will not be on our new aquatic center concrete? It'll just be,
This is asphalt down this way, the gray. So the concrete is not as much for the semi, it's more for the service center trucks and their usage.
oh, I thought you said it was for the semis that we're pulling in.
The semi conversation came in because originally we were counting on this, utilizing this turnaround, but further conversations with the service department, they can accommodate that and it will, kind of alleviates the requirement for that turnaround right there and allows them to capture that for their service yard.
So I don't know if you know this question, or Sean, so that big leaf pile you're talking about, the really tall one that I just don't think it should be back there anyways, but you know how I feel about that. But where is it going to go? Because is it going to go within the green area?
That's all this right here, right, Sean?
Yeah, it's,
Oh, no, the leaf pile's right here.
in the back area here. And so it does take up a substantial amount of room. It's now gone, but, for 2.5 months, it's pretty big.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
That was there, just like a lot of things in Mayfield Heights, it was just old, it was tired, and it rusty, and I think in the excavation, taking it out, it kind of fell apart.
So that picture, that's the old gate. You had the picture of the new gate up there before.
Yep, correct, yeah. That's another picture of the old gate right there. And then, the picture of the new gate.
Mr. Monaco, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Chair. Actually, I have a couple questions. The first one is on this asphalt that's being changed to concrete. Can you give me the specs on what was spec'd out for asphalt and what is going to be for concrete, like the thickness, the base? Seems to me that the asphalt was 8,078 and the concrete is going to be really close to 46,000. It's 4 times as much. Normally, concrete is not that much more than asphalt.
Yeah, I don't think that holds true anymore. I mean, there was always a cost increase associated with concrete versus asphalt, but it was closer, I would agree, than normally. But now, concrete has, if you followed the cement, has significantly increased. So we're looking at 8-inch reinforced concrete pavement,
So it's 8-inch concrete?
thick, yep,
Does it have any rebars in it?
Rebar, yeah.
yep,
Rebars in it? Okay.
reinforced, correct.
Okay, and asphalt was, what was
Asphalt
the
was
thickness?
had a 4.5-inch intermediate course and then 1.5-inch surface course.
Okay, and the next question will be on gas line. How much were we budgeted for the gas line before? And what size was the design for the gas line?
So we budgeted $105,000, I believe. And that was just estimated, and then when we got Dominion's final cost, it wasn't necessarily a change in the lines, it was just when we finally got the final contract and Dominion's actual costs associated with it.
What size was the diameter of the gas line? It was originally designed for this building.
It's a 4-inch.
And it's staying a 4-inch. Okay. So this $170-some thousand additional cost is for what? I mean, if you,
It's for Dominion's cost to run the line to our site.
but why was it in the original budget? I mean, we knew that.
Had some costs in the original budget, we just didn't have Dominion's final costs.
That is my question. Why not? You know that they would charge for it. Why was it not in the original?
We did incorporate some costs in our budget, just we didn't have their final costs. So we did know there was some cost, that's why we did budget some costs for it.
Well, but it would have been very easy to call East Ohio Gas and find out what the cost would have been, so that you would have presented us with a more intelligent quote, right?
Yeah, they were exploring some different options in terms of which pathway they were gonna utilize, and they had some additional homework that they had on their end, but
But this is why we pay expert like you and, you know, the engineer and the architect to figure all those costs and give us a figure that,
that's why we're also carrying a construction contingency to account for some of that
oh,
too.
I understand that. Okay, thank you.
Does any other council have any questions? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Sean, do you want to give us an update on anything?
Jim just asked.
Is he going to switch it? Is he going to switch it? He is?
There are
We'll ask him.
pieces of legislation regarding to FF&E tonight. So the first one was related to the chairs. Remember we tabled resolution 2022-72. Kind of broke it up, so now it's the chairs on one invoice or quote, and then tables on a separate quote as well. The chairs, we went from a sled-based chair to a four-leg chair. So, unfortunately, we're not gonna be able to stack as many chairs. But we'll be able to make it work. I have a layout here if anyone wants to see it.
Oh.
Can you see that?
Yeah,
Yeah, we got it, we have it.
All right, so this is a picture of the storage room. So these squares here are chair carts. The original quote with the sled-based chair was for 7 chair carts. Now we will have 17. So that's this area right here. To the right here is the round tables.
Did you say those are stackable? Oh, I'm sorry.
They are stackable. They will go 15 is the max that they go because of the four-leg situation.
Okay.
Sean, turn your mic on.
Mrs. Tressi.
Excuse me. So if your storage room could be full, is there another storage room for, we'll say, Halloween items, Christmas items, if you're having a party? I mean, is there somewhere else?
So as, we'll have an additional building in the back that's separate. It's not a high-end building. It's a, cheaper building that'll hold pool equipment and these type of things that you're talking about, the Halloween and Christmas parties and that sort of thing.
And will
Quite-
it be dry?
Yes, they'll have
so
a concrete pad on it, and there'll be electricity in there. It won't be heated, though.
Would
We'll
that,
have the fan to keep it cool in the summer, the exhaust fan, but, yeah.
would that be the location where you would store the chairs and all the pool, outdoor pool furniture in the winter
Yes,
months?
most likely, a lot of the pool equipment and other stuff that can, just be out of the elements, but can, not have to worry about being heated.
Okay. Does anyone else have, Mr. DeJohn?
I just want to go back for a second on this gas line. I don't know if Sean can answer that or not. But shouldn't the resolution be a change order?
I can jump in there. Although it was included in the budget, there's never been any legislation for this. So this is the first piece of legislation that specifically talks about the gas line. And that's why it's not a change order. It's just, we're looking at the full cost here.
So why wasn't it ever budgeted for? I mean,
It
we
was
have,
budgeted, but there was never any legislation. There's a lot of items that are in the budget that have not come before council yet. Tonight, we're bringing for, a lot of the furniture items. They're in the budget, but there hasn't been legislation yet. So this is the first piece of legislation that has specifically talked about the gas line. I think Jason has more to add to that.
Yeah, the only thing to add is that this is not a change to Higley's contract. This is something that'd be contracted directly between Dominion and the city.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see. So additionally, another piece of legislation, tonight we'll have some privacy screens and planters, and that will be part of a cabana. We're gonna have 3 cabanas that residents can rent out on the pool deck. So what you're looking at there is just a layout of the pool deck. And as you can see, the blue and yellow and green colors are the shade nets. Shade is a big thing nowadays with people. So this particular shade net right here will be broken down into 3 cabanas that residents can rent. So in the event that they want to be, I guess, on the 50-yard line, so to speak, to keep a close eye on their children, and but want some privacy, they can have that.
I'm sorry, will you point that out one more time, Sean, what people will rent? I'm sorry. I know.
So as you're looking at these, it's this blue shade net right here, if you can see where the cursor is.
So there's 3 of them that are around, or
Well,
4?
so that's a large shade net, and it'll be broken down into 3 cabanas.
Sean, tell them what each person will get.
So you would get 2 chase lounges, a side table, and 4 dining chairs, basically just the strap chairs, the upright chairs. And it's under shade. And it's a 8x14 area, and there's 3 of those.
And are they going to be rented for the day or by the hour?
For the day.
For the day.
That's the goal. I mean, I guess on a lot of these things, we can adjust on the fly if we see that the need is different. But right now, the plan is to do it for the day. example of I think I put this on the, there's an example of the planter in front of the privacy screen.
Where's that going to be located?
Underneath the
Those
shade net.
screens are going to be located in that, under that shade net that I referenced before.
Oh, okay. Outside.
Outside, yes.
So it looks like it's showing it there within, I'm sorry.
That's a picture off their,
Oh,
website,
yeah.
but that's the, kind of the situation we have there.
Oh, Mrs. Teresi.
So is it an emergency measure to order these? I mean, I think we have it listed as an emergency measure. Like you can't order them in 40 days?
Good.
You could. Yeah, I mean, because that, and I looked this up, and I also looked up the bleachers, and there's a number of companies like Uline, and there were a number of companies that sell them. I just wondered why they were everything was an emergency measure.
Yep.
Not an answer.
Most of those, I think the bleachers, these, the adjustable tables, those three items aren't necessarily an emergency. The chairs probably are a longer lead time and would need to be, that one would
Right.
definitely need to be an emergency. So,
So I had asked Sean the same question about, well, like, you can go buy tables at Costco. They have the big round tables. You know, like, I was just
Yeah.
inquiring, are we getting the best prices? Because I thought you could, same thing, looked them up on different websites,
Right.
trying to get different pricing. But then he explained to me this whole Ohio purchasing program and how there's a specific amount of people that, you want to explain it to everyone, so maybe they would
Certain
understand?
number of vendors that they can
Yes.
purchase from.
And if we don't, then they have to go back and,
Get three
So-
bids.
Well, and I would assume that they're less expensive than going to a retailer. I mean, you always want to buy wholesale if you can,
like,
so that's pretty understandable.
yeah.
so all those were vetted. If we were to go to Costco or something, we'd have to get three bids. And, like you said, they'd be probably more expensive. It's already been bid out for the majority of these items.
Mayor? Yeah.
Excuse me for being tardy, I apologize. I was a little working late, sorry.
Stand in the corner.
I mean, we talked about emergency measures, and I think not knowing knowing the climate of supply right now, it was decided that it's probably best if we order now and make sure we get it in time, that's all. Just to make sure that we have a long enough lead time and give us some cushion there. That was why we said make emergency measure, just to get moving as fast as possible, that's all.
Doesn't it take effect within 30 days?
If you
Is it
do an
emergency
yes,
measure?
it does.
So it's, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so
it's okay
it's
by council,
January.
right.
Yeah, so if you didn't order them in January and you ordered them in March, we'll say, I mean, I understand the chairs because of the large quantity.
We'll have to clarify that. Go ahead. Did you want to clarify?
Sure. If we do pass it as an emergency, then it is effective once all the signatures are on the paper. Otherwise, if it's not an emergency, but it does pass, it has to wait 30 days before it becomes effective. Okay, we weren't sure which one of us heard it backwards.
No.
We weren't sure which way it went.
I thought that's the way it was. Well, it's only January. We're not sitting outside of the
Shoulder chair.
July.
Any other questions?
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes, Mr. Ward, you have 2023-13 on here to hire I'm sorry, 2023-04 to hire a facility supervisor. Have you put together a spreadsheet of all the employees you're going to need for all of these centers?
So we've had a discussion about this, and what we're going to do is we're going to, the idea is that we'd start with a full-time maintenance supervisor who, takes care of the pool and all the systems that take place over in that new facility, and also City Hall. And then supplement that with part-time employees in the evenings and weekends. DeJohn Community Center was probably booked 70% of the time. And a new facility, brand new facility, I'm sure is going to be booked much higher than that. So there's a potential that you could have multiple events going on at the same time. So having multiple part-time employees that can kind of fill the gaps is the initial route we're going to go.
So this is a supervisor, not a maintenance supervisor, correct?
Facilities supervisor, I believe, is the name of it.
So he's a supervisor supervising other employees. Do we know whether those employees will be full-time, part-time?
At this point, part-time.
And do you have any idea what it's going to take to operate these facilities?
In terms of,
People, personnel.
yeah, so, we've discussed having 4 to 5 part-time employees, and, the deal with a part-time employee is how much do they want to work, and is there a time, generally some of these folks are retired, are they, what is their availability? But the need is to be able to fill the weekends, to be able to handle the weekends. So if we have 2 parties on a Saturday, one starts at noon and the other starts at 4 or 5, to be able to carry that through the night. We don't want to have a situation where the building won't be open without someone there.
So the part-time employees that you would be hiring would be coming out of the Parks and Recreation Department, but this new facilities manager would be out of the Service Department?
Correct.
So, like Mr. DeJohn said, would he be overseeing those people that are your part-time employees in your department?
Correct, yes. There'll be a lot of coordination.
Yeah.
And a lot of working together.
Mrs. Tressi?
So this facilities person that you're hiring, is it going to be, are you posting that job and hiring a person who really has experience on how to do all of this? Or are you going to just look at our employee base that we have now, maybe in the service department or Park and Rec, and just hire from within? And I mean, they have no training. A facilities manager, if you look online or look at any employment, they know a lot.
HVAC, plumbing, electrical.
Right.
Yes.
So-
That is absolutely what we're looking for, is people that have those skills.
So you're going to post this job to outside individuals?
Correct. To anyone, but yes, it's not going to be, I don't think it's going to be exclusively in-house.
Do you feel that we have in-house employees that can handle this?
I don't know. I'm not sure what all the skills are, but we're definitely looking for someone that's strong in the HVAC. We all know City Hall has a lot of HVAC issues, and quite frankly, this new building is going to have state-of-the-art systems, and someone needs to know that and be able to handle that. This is, we're making a big commitment to this facility, and we need to back it up by making a big commitment to keeping it up to the best of our ability.
Madam Chair, if I could. Just to clarify the responsibilities of the position, they're not really to fix HVAC issues or plumbing problems or electrical problems. It's to know the systems inside and out, so they know what's the next step. Can somebody, maybe he can fix it, or maybe, who do I call? What is the status of this, pump or all the different mechanisms that we're going to have, new ones in the the new facility, but then also, I think it's a position that we've sorely lacked here. A facilities manager who will keep track of all of our systems here and stay on top of them and know, who to call, when to call, and just monitor everything. So I just think it's a position that City Hall has been lacking for a while. And now that we have this new position, I think they could be, or new facility, I should say, I think they could be combined and really get our efficiencies from that person that way.
And I think you really have to have an experienced facilities manager. I know that the company I work for, we have apartments, we have shopping centers, we have homes. You need to have, and not every person can handle all of that. I mean, we have a number of facilities people, but they're experienced in what they do. I mean, you just can't say, oh, I'll take that guy in the third row because he knows he's going to call Gardner when the.
Jimmy?
Yeah, no. Oh, don't call Jim. He'll call somebody. But you know what I'm saying? You
Yeah, I
just can't.
understand. Yep.
I mean, granted, can he call Gardner to fix the heating? And that doesn't work out well. You know what I mean? So this person really has to be knowledgeable himself to work through the problems that we're going to have, because this is a big facility to take care of, and then you're adding City Hall. So that's, and I get that we have issues here because we've had them since 2002 when we built the building, that chiller and all those crazy things that were put in. But you really have to have an experienced person, not just, you just can't pick somebody off the roster and say, well, I know you know how to call, the electrician, and you know how to call the plumber. You need to have somebody one person that's really focused and does nothing but his job.
I think the job description that was sent out is right on the money. It says everything you just said.
When you had pool issues before, did you use the service department or specific person within the service department to help before you called out a company?
Some
know-
things we handled in-house, other things we just called out for. But just having one, a consistent person that's their baby, that's what they do, and, that goes a long way.
Okay. Any questions? Any more questions for Mr. Ward? The board behind him is some of the samples of what it's going to look like on the interior. And then the chair, right?
The chair, not this color. This is the chair. Four legs. It'll be gray.
All right, thank you. All right.
No, it'll be gray, it won't be white. It's going to be gray.
Do I have a motion to adjourn? So moved. Moved by Mrs. Sabetta, second by Mr. Mano. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. This meeting is now adjourned. Good evening. I would like to call the January 23rd council meeting of the City of Mayfield Heights to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Bellistrea.
Present.
Mr. DeJohn.
Here.
Mr. Mano.
Here.
Mr. Monaco.
Here.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Here.
Mrs. Snyder.
Here.
Mrs. Teresi.
Here.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, we'll move to the approval of the minutes of the council meeting from January 9th, 2023. I hope everyone's had time to read these minutes over. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Bellistrea. Second by Mr. Mano. Are there any suggested changes, amendments, or deletions to these minutes? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? These minutes have been approved as written. Does any member of council have any correspondence or announcements? Okay. We will move to reports of officers, starting with the mayor.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us this evening. I just wanted to point out that on Wednesday, we will reach a significant milestone in the construction of our new community center and aquatic center. We will have our topping off of the last beam for the gymnasium, which is a long-standing tradition and construction work. So I am looking forward to that. I guess it's actually a ceremony, so I'm looking forward to that, and I hope members of council are there to participate also. It's quite a milestone, so looking forward to that. And that's really all I have at this point.
Any questions for the mayor? Mr. DeJohn.
Mayor, I received a notification from the illuminating company that they're going to be my power generator now because NOPEC has given up the contract. So do you know what's going on with NOPEC?
They're trying to put a plan together, NOPEC. I know they're trying to reorganize and get a plan together. That's as far as it's gotten right now. I don't have any specifics for you.
Okay, thank you.
They did that with the gas, too. I got a letter for the gas.
That was a while ago. but
Yeah, a while ago. Any other questions for the mayor? Director of Law, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no formal report this evening, but I would like to note with regard to Resolution Number 2022-72, which is currently tabled, Mr. Ward has either addressed council or submitted something to council, or he will do it at the time regarding removing that from table and passing it as amended. So if it gets to that point where it is removed from table, I'll note what areas should be amended if council wants to consider it. And that's all.
I just have a quick question. Do you have any updates regarding the animal warden contract for us?
It was sent out to ANS, and we haven't gotten it back yet. Mrs. Fagan just prodded me on that, so I'll give Mr. Suter a call tomorrow and ask him where the contract is.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Murphy? Director of Finance, Mrs. Fagan.
Thank you. I have no report this evening.
Thank you. Next, we'll move to reports of committees, commissions, and boards. If your board is met, please be prepared for report. Building Committee, Mr. Monaco.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In your packet tonight, you should have the minutes for the Building Committee meeting. They was held on December 20th. That meeting was regarding the permit fees. Everybody voted on this at the last meeting. It was approved, and I'd like to thank everybody for the cooperation and the positive vote on this. So That's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Monaco? Finance and Audit Committee, Mr. DeJong.
Thank you, Madam President. We have ordinance number 2023-05 on the agenda tonight. I did have some discussion with Mrs. Fagan about this. There are a couple items on there that I did not approve in previous legislation, but she said this is a housekeeping. So just because we vote on this, doesn't mean that we approve the amounts on there. I see Mr. Murphy has a strange look on his face. So specifically speaking, the community center fund for $600,000 and special events fund for another $100,000. So maybe Mrs. Fagan can explain this to the rest of the council. So I asked her for a line item on this, and she said that's not the way they do it, so.
I would be happy to answer that. First of all, the line item, I did send out a report that had all of the purchase orders. I believe I did that Sunday morning. That went out to all of council. That is the line item that you would be getting. What this is strictly the carryover of the open POs that were open at the end of '22 and bringing them into '23. In this city, it's always been done where those open POs are shown in that appropriation ordinance, so I'm including them in there to be historically consistent. For the last 3 years, I think now, we've passed the budget before the end of the year so we can run the city more efficiently. But what that does mean is when the budget is passed for '23, we don't know exactly what those carryover POs will be. We're still paying bills, we're still doing business as a city. So once the year is closed, we know what that number is, we bring them back to council to have them included in that appropriation ordinance. The two numbers that you just mentioned, the $600,000 and the $100,000, have not changed. Those are transfers that were included in the budget for 2023. And that has nothing to do with the legislation that tonight. Those were in the original appropriation amendment. They are there now also. They're just, because they are transfers, we are required to call them out specifically is why they're in their own table in the legislation. But those are not changing at all this evening.
Thank you. Mr. DeJong, did you have anything further?
No, that concludes my
Any
report.
questions for Mr. DeJong or Mrs. Fagan? Okay. We'll move to Legislative Committee, Mrs. Sabetta.
Thank you. I have no report.
Okay. Public Works and Service Committee, Mr. Balestria.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Public Works did not have a meeting as of yet. Council was copied on the last meeting minutes. It's in your packet this evening. I am looking forward to set up another meeting very quickly to finalize a cost for our road program and sidewalk program. And Madam Chair, I would like to introduce Joe Cuny from the GPD Group. He is the director, and I would like him to address council during my report. He's got some information for us. Go ahead, Joe.
Welcome, Mr. Tooney. Please state your name and address.
Thank you. Good evening. Is this on?
Yeah.
Now it's on. Okay. Good evening, council. This is Joe Chuney. I live at 18938 Winslow Road, Shaker Heights, Ohio. I have a few remarks here this evening. Before I begin my remarks, I want to publicly thank both the mayor and police chief Mealy. My father passed away on January 4th, and on January 11th, we had the funeral mass for him. The mass was at, if you don't know my dad was the former city engineer for Shaker Heights, University Heights, Bedford, Macedonia, and Walton Hills. He was an engineer. I ended up taking over his company, and then I merged in with the GPD Group in 2007. But anyway, the mass was at Shaker Heights at St. Dominic's, and he's buried at Knollwood Cemetery here in Mayfield Heights. So I contacted a few of the police chiefs along the way. My dad had 4 kids. He has 16 grandkids, 14 great-grandchildren. His sister and his brother are still alive. So we had a big procession, and it was really a nice tribute to have the police there to escort us. And Mayfield Heights had the last leg. They picked us up at Cedar and Gates Mills Boulevard, and we went down Gates Mills to Salmon into Knollwood Cemetery, and it was very, very impressive. And I thank you, Chief, for doing that for me. I appreciate that.
Sorry for your loss.
Thank you. Appreciate that. He was 86 years old. So while I was burying my father, Josh Slaga turned in his 2-week notice to GPD Group. I actually didn't even get to meet with him until it was actually his last day. I was out, so I did meet with him before he left. I stood before you back in September and told you the same thing about the job market when Mr. Gerson left. There's poachers out there. The job market is brutal. We do our best to keep our best people. We're not always successful. And Josh moved on to what he thinks are greener pastures. So I'm here to tell you that I am not assigning anybody else. I will be your representative from GPD Group. You'll see my smiling face here on Mondays at council meetings or committee meetings or what have you. I did tell the mayor that I do have other commitments, and when I cannot make it, and it'll be 90% of the time you will see me, but I have my right-hand man is Nick Feeney. We've worked together for 25 years at GPD. All we do is municipal engineering, so if I can't make it, Nick will be here, but most of the time you're going to see me. So I'm here today also to address some of the comments made at the last council meeting. I think it was January 9th was your last meeting. I did watch the video. I did read through all the minutes. I had a discussion with Josh Slaga. I also called Dan Gerson. I am here to tell you that I am up to speed on everything. I can answer any of the questions on those issues. I don't think today is appropriate for it at a council meeting to banter back and forth with the issues and go over all the details of a road program. I would like the chairman to call another committee meeting, or Mr. Snyder, if you want to call a committee of the whole meeting, that's fine. I'd like the committee meeting, though, to hopefully Mr. DeJong could be there and Mr. Monaco so that I could address all of those issues that you brought up in the last meeting. I am prepared to do that. I think the issues are serious enough that we should be at a meeting where we could roll up our sleeves. We could spend an hour, spend 2 hours, whatever you need, so that we can go through all of these items that you brought up so that I can, tell our side of the story a little bit. I think you don't know all the stories. I am here to tell you, though, that I don't disagree with what you said last week. Let's put it this way. I'm a good engineer, but I am not a perfect engineer. I make mistakes. My colleagues make mistakes, too. All engineers make mistakes. The only engineer that doesn't make a mistake is my father, because he's up in heaven right now. He's not going to make any more mistakes, all right? I will not run away from my mistakes. If we go through these issues and the council still thinks that GPD had some fault here, all right, we will step to the plate, all right, and we will do what we have to do, all right? And you're hearing that from me, and it's a commitment from our company as well. So, but I think we should go through this. I think we should sit down. We should talk about all these issues that you had with some of my colleagues, all right? Now you're dealing with me, all right, and we'll go through these items. So, second thing that I want to bring up today is you have a very aggressive road program, all right? I read through the minutes, and I went through it with Josh. I saw your road program, all the streets that are on the list. GPD, we did a PCR rating of all your streets, pavement condition rating. It's an ODOT system to rate your streets. It's a scientific program, all right? And I'm sure a lot of those recommendations for the streets come from that PCR rating that we have on all your streets. And your program is very aggressive, but you haven't finalized it. And we need to finalize it because it's almost February. I could tell you for a fact, Shaker Heights is already out for bid right now with their 2023 road program. City of Beechwood will be out the first week of February with their program. We can't get further behind the 8 ball. We need to make a decision on both the number of streets and the scope. And I think part of the issues that were brought up last week at the meeting, or 2 weeks ago, was part of the scope, understanding the scope, what was expected of these of the road program. But we can go over all that at the committee meeting, I would hope. So. That's all. I don't want to take up any more of your time. You have a long agenda. I can't answer any questions you would like this evening, or we can wait until the committee meeting.
Okay, I think what we're going to do is we'll have a committee of the whole meeting to go over all those items that we talked about in the last meeting, but we'll have to have a separate road program meeting, so I'll look to Mr. Balustrade to set that up.
Sure.
If you can do that as soon as possible, that would be great.
Definitely.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll be happy to come to the meeting, and we could go over all the issues.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Mr. Balustrade.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Joe for coming in. I was trying to get a hold of Josh for 3 weeks and was not aware of that. he had turned in his resignation. So just so the council's aware, you know, I was supposed to get those hardcore numbers the first week in January, and I wasn't getting return phone calls, I thought, and I got a new phone for Christmas, so I thought it was my phone. So I went to an old phone, and needless to say, I didn't get the return call, so I didn't know. So we're behind now. So I'm going to set this meeting up as soon as possible. I would encourage all of council to come. It would save maybe a lot of questions at the council meeting, because it is an aggressive program. And maybe we can agree, even during the committee meeting, as to what roads we want to do, you know, that would come under the budget, or make recommendations to supersede the budget or something like that. So, and I would also like to add in my report that the speed indicators that the committee recommended to council for Woodhawk were installed. The mayor signed off on that. They are up, and I want to thank the chief for doing the groundwork for that and getting me back the numbers. And I went over there and saw them, and I think they look fine, and apparently they're slowing down the traffic. So, and I know the chief gets some data off of those speed indicators as well. So it'll give an indication of speeds on that street, and he's going to do more to police Woodhawk if it continues to be a problem with his officers.
Perfect.
Okay?
Great. Thank you very much for your
thank you.
report. Any questions for Mr. Balistreo? Okay, Mr. DeJohn?
Just, do you have a PC rating for the streets for this year?
Just based on what Josh's recommendations were at the last meeting, yeah, we do. Which streets were, you know, and I gave that extensive report, which ones were needed total reconstruction, which ones would be resurfaced, and we broke them down, I think, into maybe 5 or 6 sections of the city, and go out and bid on maybe 5 or 6 different bids.
Yes, so I was speaking of that color-coded one that I've seen in the
Yeah,
past.
that's
the one.
one.
Thank you.
Diane?
Okay. Oh, Mrs. Tressi?
Also, in the meeting that we had for the road program, we discussed beginning the dye testing program. So that would be something that we need to address as well in that committee of the whole, because we've been waiting a long time for that to begin.
Okay. Recreation and Parks Committee, Mr. Mano.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have no formal report tonight, but tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock in these chambers, there'll be a parade committee meeting, followed by a Park and Rec meeting at 7 o'clock, and all those meetings are open to the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Safety and Transportation, Mrs. Tressi.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have no report this evening.
Thank you. Board of Zoning Appeals, Mrs. Sabetta.
Thank you, Madam President. Yes, the Board of Zoning met on January 10th. There is one item on the agenda that council can address when presented. I encourage the applicant's contractor to speak and address council during the public portion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mrs. Sabetta? Okay, Planning Commission, Mr. Balistreo.
No report this evening, Madam Chair.
All right, that concludes our reports of committees. We will now move to the public portion. Pursuant to city code, each person will be allotted 30 minutes for the entire public portion. If you are here in connection with an agenda item, this is your opportunity to be heard. Please fill out a form located on the table of the public entrance of the council chamber. During the public portion, I will call each person wishing to speak to the podium. Please state your name and address for the record, and speak clearly into the microphone. It is now 7:24. I will open up the public portion. I'd like to call Mr. Philip Katz.
Hello, my name is Philip Katz. I'm a dealer for Old Hickory Buildings. My company is called The Shed Guy, and I'm representing Joel and Jessica Brown from 1952 Marshfield Road. We met with the Building and Zoning on the 10th, and we're requesting a variance for a larger size shed at that time, and that was approved by unanimously by Building and Zoning. The Browns were not able to be here. They had a family vacation that was planned months ago. I do have a letter that they asked me to read, but it was also sent to all of council. But if you'd like, I'll read their letter out loud if you want me to.
Did all members of council receive the letter?
Read it.
Yeah, we can just, if you want to give the letter to our clerk, she can make it part of our minutes. That'd be great. Thank you.
So as I stated, Building and Zoning, after, many questions, it was approved unanimously. If anybody has any questions in regards to that, I would be happy to field those questions.
Okay. We can answer them when it comes before us this evening.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Very good. So as the Browns just wanted me to let everybody know, the reason they're asking for this variance is because they're a growing family, they're running out of room in their home. They'd like to be able to put both of their cars in the garage, empty the garage with all their children's toys and so forth, and put them into a shed, as well as patio furniture and the normal things you put in a shed.
Okay.
They have no storage, they have a split level, so there's no basement.
Okay,
Okay, thank you
great.
so
Thank
much.
you so much. I would like to call Deborah Kramer.
I have prepared my remarks because I have a lot of them and I want to get it done. So, you mind if I skip you?
Thank you, thank you.
Skip me too.
I'll give you mine as soon as I finish. There we go. My name is Deborah Kramer. I live at 1110 Belrose Road, and of course, I'm back talking about solar panels. I'm just going to read what I just gave you. I have studied the minutes of the Legislative Committee meeting on December 5th, and I appreciate the depth of the discussion and the attention that was paid to this matter. Many questions were raised, and I will attempt to answer some of them. In my view, the minutes reflect 3 separate issues, what I'd like to separate out and clarify. Issue number 1 is solar panels and safety. Chief Elliott brought up issues regarding the safety of solar panels and potential dangers to firefighters. I agree that these concerns should be addressed since I and several other people already have panels on our homes, which have been approved by the city. He suggests that a method should be implemented to notify the fire department of the existence of panels and/or batteries, which would reduce his concerns. I hope such a system is implemented, as I did not think about notifying the fire department myself, assuming that this would have been part of the approval process. I do have a bright red decal on the front of my house, which reads, "Solar electric panels, solar PV system equipped with rapid shutdown." It goes on to give instructions for shutdown. It is unattractive, and I asked to have it put on the back of the house, but my builder said that it is required to be near the inside location of the panels. I assume that might be a state regulation or something. The chief also mentioned the need for ventilation and suggested that a roof is 90% covered with panels, there would be no means of ventilation. This suggests that legislation should limit the percent of the roof which has panels, regardless of whether they're on the front, rear, or sides of the house. Questions were asked about the longevity of the panels and the weight. Panels are guaranteed, or my panels anyway, are guaranteed for 25 years, and after 25 years, my panels are guaranteed to perform at minimum of 90.1% of initial performance. The weight of the panels is of a 5.6 by 3.3 foot panel is approximately 39.7 pounds. Issue number 2 is batteries. The issue of batteries was also brought up as a safety concern. A solar system does not need a battery to store the energy. Because I don't have one, I don't know anything about them. Since this issue is not dependent on the location of the panels, and at least one resident already has batteries, it should definitely be addressed in legislation. Referring to me, the minute stated, quote, "She ideally would like to plug her car in," which leads to another issue that the city will have to deal with concerning batteries. That was a quote from the minutes. I hope you're aware that I'm already plugging in my car. So if that needs to be addressed, it should be addressed, using the system that was already approved by the ABR. So that's already happening. Issue number 3 is the location of the panel separate from the first 2 issues. The issue of curb appeal was referenced frequently in the minutes. It was noted that other communities are also denying solar panels which are visible from the street, and that it is assumed that visible panels would lower property values. North Olmsted, Bay Village, Bedford, and Mayfield Village were referenced as communities who only allow solar panels in the side and rear yards. I have attached the ordinances from each of these communities to show that this is not the case. It is possible that the confusion comes from the distinction between roof-mounted and ground-mounted systems. An example of a ground-mounted system is the field behind Progressive, which is visible from 271, which I would concede is ugly. A roof-mounted system is what I have shown you pictures of, and it looks like a series of skylights. Bay Village clearly states that ground-mounted systems are permitted in the rear yard of a non-residential property, but makes no such statement about roof-mounted systems. North Olmsted makes the same distinction. Bedford only allows systems on the rear or side-facing roofs unless, quote from their document, "The applicant demonstrates that due to solar access limitations, no location exists other than the street-facing roof where the solar energy system can perform effectively."
Mrs. Kramer?
Yeah, time's
That
up.
was 5 minutes. It's okay. I can have you continue as long as council
Okay,
says
thanks.
it's okay. Moved by Mr. DeJohn, second by Mr. Ballister. Okay, you're good.
Thank you. So let's see. Mayfield Village. Mayfield Village states that the Architectural Board of Review may approve the placement of solar panels in roof or ground locations that are visible from any public right-of-way when the applicant has demonstrated to the Architectural Board of Review that the location is necessary to optimize system functionality. I have included a fuller text of these documents for your review. They're stapled on there and even highlighted. It should also be noted that restricting the location of the panels does nothing to address the safety concerns noted above, which is why I wanted to separate out the issue. In conclusion, Mr. DeJohn, you asked what exactly is the purpose of solar panels. I had to step back and think about a succinct answer to the question. The purpose is to reduce dependence on electricity from the grid, which is created by burning fossil fuels and contributing to climate change. If I generate some of my own electricity, I reduce my footprint, which is all I can do. Corporations and governments can only do so much, and individual citizens need to make their own decisions to do what they can, which is why I keep coming to these meetings. At this point, it is not so much about me putting more panels on my house, but about all of the citizens of this city being able to reduce their contribution to climate change. I am only using myself as an example. It is not about the money. I have already invested $21,000 in my panel, and I will never save that much money. I doubt I will live that long, even if my system is expanded. It's about the future and doing my little part. Thank you for hearing me out.
Madam
Thank you,
President.
Mrs. Kramer.
Madam President.
Mr. DeJohn?
So minutes are a little misleading. So I asked what the purpose was, to provide energy for the house or to put it back in the grid or both? What is a person seeking? So that was the question I had in the.
I noticed there was another follow-up sentence there.
Yeah, so minutes are a little misleading when you read.
I know you understand a solar panel. The
Yeah.
purpose for me is, and I think for most of us, is to generate the power that is needed for our own residents. And it only generates when the sun is out, so you still have reliance on the grid. I can't imagine producing enough energy that you would not need energy from the grid. So it's not really to make money, it's just to use less solar, like less energy from the grid. Does that answer it?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to be heard this evening?
Madam Chair.
The chair, can I say something? You know, it's been long enough. You've been very patient coming to all these meetings. And to be honest with you, it shouldn't have taken that long. I think that we need to do some and work on this ordinance and get it done as soon as possible. I just got a new job and I work for a new company and I do inspections pretty much all over the place. And just in Brooklyn Heights, in the last 3 months, we inspected 3 of those units that were installed on the roof. So it's the future. It's coming. Whether we want them or not, eventually those are going to be approved. They're going to be needed. It's a clean energy, and I think the sooner we get this done, the better it is.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Monaco. All right, would anyone else like to be heard this evening? If you can, oh, no, no, there's no one had it. You can come up. Yeah, just come up to the podium, it's fine. Just state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Marianne Viveros. I live on 1269 Washington. I came one time before with Mrs. Kramer, and I'm mainly just here to back her up. I think she said pretty much everything that needs to be said, and I just want to support her because we're also thinking of getting solar panels at some point, and we want to reduce our footprint. And it seems like the main issue that's kind of sticking things is the aesthetic thing, but based on what the other cities are doing, it seems like we just need a little flexibility, that when there are too many trees in the back or some issue that's making the panels not effective in the back or on the side, that in those cases, we might need to make some exceptions and hopefully can make them in a way that's not too aesthetically upsetting to anyone. So it sounds like we're getting somewhere, so I just want to give my support to that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Yes?
Oh, no, you know what? Yes, please. Mhm. You can give it to her. Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to be heard tonight? Mr. Ward?
I sent you all an email last week about the beam signing on the 25th. The weather doesn't look that great right now, so we're going to make a decision that morning as to what we do. But in the event that there's snow, we're not going to want to have you guys go out there and someone slip and get hurt. So if that's the case and the weather's not acceptable, then we'll move the beam over to in front of the construction trailer, and we'll have you make the signing there and just do it there so no one's slipping and falling and getting hurt. So, but I'll let you all know. I'll send an email out. The other thing is, if you haven't responded to me, if you could just let me know if you're going to be there so Higley can have enough safety equipment on hand for everyone.
Okay,
All right,
thank you.
thanks.
All right, we will close our public portion. It is 7:35. We will now move to resolutions, beginning, move from the table, right? Beginning with 2022-72. Do I have a motion to remove this from the table?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Ballestreous, second by Mr. Mano. Roll call on removing Resolution 2022-72 from the table.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Balestrea.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Resolution number 2022-72 amended. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The amendments that have been provided to me by Mr. Ward are with regard to the price of the furniture, which has been reduced under this resolution to $55,654, and the date of the quote, which is now a revised quote, and it's December 20th, 2023, or 2022, I'm sorry. So with those two amendments, this would be in a position to be considered by council for adoption.
Thank you.
So we'd need to move to amend it based on what I had just indicated first, and then move to adopt.
Okay, we need to amend this as Mr. Murphy stated. Do I have someone to move that? Mr. Mano, second by Mrs. Tressi. We move to suspend.
No, well, it's been read.
I need a motion.
Roll call.
I need a roll call.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mr. Balestrea.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Balestrea, second by Mr. Monaco. This resolution is the amended version of the original quote that was tabled that had chairs and tables. This resolution has been amended to just include the chair order only, the purchase of 250 chairs and 17 chair dollies for storage of these chairs, 20 chairs for the multipurpose room, and 1 reclining chair for the first aid room, and 2 armless stools for the concession stand. The total cost for this is $55,654. It was part of the original resolution 2022-72, and this was budgeted for the interior furniture. Does any council member have any questions? Mr. DeJohn?
Yes, so we have 7 resolutions on the agenda tonight for the community center. So I don't want to be Dr. No, but I'm going to be voting no on all these resolutions because, as you all know, I'm against the construction of this new aquatic center and community building. And as I've said in the past, I don't want to belabor this point, but there were other means to keep our existing community center, rehab it, and rehab the current pool without spending all of this money. So just so I give you an explanation of why I'm going to be voting no on all these resolutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeJohn. Is there anybody else that would like, Mrs. Tressi?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. What did we do with all of the other tables and chairs and the first aid recliner? I don't know that we had one, but what did we do with all of that equipment?
I think the tables are in the basement here, right? We stored them. But the chairs, did you sell those? Mr. Ward, if you want to come up and tell.
All the equipment is in the basement, so those chairs will be able to be used for the holiday lighting ceremony, Memorial Day, and any other events that we have here at City Hall that the public would be at. Part of the problem is in transporting them back and forth between the facility, they ultimately take a beating in traversing from one place to the other, and just kind of, it puts a lot of wear and tear on them. So everything's in the basement. With regards to the recliner, we have not had one of those in the past, but this is a piece of furniture for the pool that if someone gets hurt in first aid and they need to lay back, that they'll be able to do that.
And the tables that we had before were 64-inch tables, and you're going with 72,
60-inch.
60-inch, and you're going with 72
Yes.
for the round. Okay. Are there any further questions? Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
No.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. This resolution has been adopted. Moving to resolution number 2023-7, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution 2023-07, a resolution confirming the action of the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Mayfield Heights in granting to Jessica Lee Finney Brown and Joel R. Brown, 1952 Marshfield Road, a variance to construct a new storage shed on the property. Cuyahoga County Permanent Parcel Number 863-21-013, larger in area than that allowed by the codified ordinances. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mr. Mano, second by Mr. Monaco. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Mr. Mano, second by Mrs. Tressi. This resolution was a unanimous vote by the BZA, 5-0, in favor of granting the shed located at the residence of 1952 Marshfield Road. Everyone should have received the minutes from the Board of Zoning. Mrs. Sabetta, if you would like to add to that this
Thank
evening.
you, Madam President. Yes, council should have the meeting minutes, a letter from the applicant's neighbor, along with the applicant's letter, and also heard from the applicant's contractor. The property has no attic or basement. It is a small dwelling. Half the two-car garage is used for storage, child's toys, where cars should be. Front and back patio furniture. The applicant uses an off-property storage unit where clearly on her property it can be stored. There's plenty of room in the rear yard. The city is working on amending the present 1985 shed ordinance. This was a unanimous recommendation to approve. All members were present.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mrs. Sabetta? Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes?
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Resolution number 2023-7 has been approved. Moving to resolution number 2023-08, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution number 2023-08, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a mainline extension agreement with the East Ohio Gas Company, DBA Dominion Energy Ohio, to provide natural gas service for the Aquatic Center and the Community Center in the city of Mayfield Heights and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mrs. Tressi, second by Mr. Balestria. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes?
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Mano,
Second?
second by Mrs. Sabetta. This is an agreement to extend the main gas line to the new aquatic and community project. Attached to your resolution is a lengthy agreement proposal. Are there any comments from council? I know we heard from the GPD group, Mr. Nolte, this evening about it. You had some questions. Is there anything further? Mrs. Tressi?
How long is the agreement? What is the length of the agreement?
Hold on one second. Mrs.
The
Fagan?
agreement isn't for providing the gas to the facility. The agreement is to extend the line and for the actual construction of that extended line.
And then it talks about a tariff, number 8 on page 3, subject to terms of Dominion's tariff. Do we know what that means?
I do not have an answer for you on that.
And on
I'm sure Jason probably would have been able to address that when he was here. But no, I do not have an answer for you on that.
on page 1 at number 4, it talks about the completion of the project, and Dominion will install necessary metering and other facilities as needed to permit the provision of natural gas. Is there going to be a cost that's going to be associated with that?
Yeah, the tariff is not attached to here, the agreement tariff.
Yeah, it doesn't talk about it.
It's part of the.
Mayor?
You want to comment, Joe? For sure. I don't want to say anything, and I believe it's part of the.
It's already part of the
It's
cost?
part of the cost that you have for the extension of the line. The utility company always owns up to the meter. So they extend the line and then all the way up to the meter. Then on the homeowner side, I would call it, of the meter, then that's our responsibility. So, yeah, they have to install a meter, so we pay for gas going forward. Correct.
And is this cost, is it being added to the $35 million for the cost of the aquatic center?
As was stated earlier this evening, there was a portion, I believe Jason said it was $105,000, was included in the original budget. And now this cost is actually coming in at that $165 when we got the final paperwork through from the utility company, so that the legislation is for that full amount, because we've never had a piece of legislation for this in the past.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions or comments?
I just have a comment.
Mr. Monaco?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, as I stated earlier, I think that this fee should have been included in the original cost. So I'm kind of disappointed that it's not, but I'm going to vote for it.
Mayor, did you have something to say?
It was included in the cost, but it is more than anticipated.
It was 105 originally in the first quote, so now it's 60 more thousand, correct?
What they estimated.
Right, estimated. Mr. Monaco?
My understanding is that the fee that the gas company is charging was not included in the original proposal. And in my opinion, it should have been.
I think that figure was including that, but now it is. The job has increased in cost. The original allowance, or the original figure had an allowance for the gas company in there. For their fee, I should say, obviously.
That is not what I heard earlier, but okay, thank you. I don't think so.
Okay. Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
No.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. This resolution has now been adopted. Moving to resolution number 2023-9, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution 2023-09, a resolution authorizing and approving change management number 031 to the agreement with the Albert M. Higley Company for the construction of the Mayfield Heights Aquatic Center and the Community Center and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mr. Mano,
Second.
second by Mr. Belstrea. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
Moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sabetta,
Second.
second by Mr. Belstrea. This also was discussed by Mr. Nolde in the Committee of the Whole meeting. This is a change order request for the service yard. The request is for the use of heavy-duty concrete to be used in place of heavy-duty asphalt. They are also requesting a gate to replace the current one that they have. The cost for this change request would be $48,336.81. The original plan for asphalt in the specific area will not hold up to heavy trucks. The change in adding concrete is being requested by the Service Department. As for the gate, the plan was to use the old gate that was back there by the service yard, but due to the condition of the gate, it was old and rusty and fell apart. Does any member of council have any questions or comments? Okay. Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
No.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes, this resolution has been approved. Moving to resolution number 2023-10, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution 2023-10, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Ohio Desk for the purchase of furniture for use in the Mayfield Heights Community Center and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Monaco, second by Mr. Balestria. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes, is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Monaco, second by Mr. Balestria. This resolution is for the purchase of 40 heavy-duty folding tables and 3 folding table dollies for storage. The total cost, including freight, is $11,727.73. The quote from Ohio Desk is part of the Ohio Cooperative Purchasing Program. I know some of these questions might have been answered by Mr. Ward earlier this evening as well. Does any member have any further questions or comments? Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
No.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Resolution 2023-10 has been approved. Moving to resolution number 2023-11, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution 2023-11, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Game Time for the purchase of bleachers for use at the Mayfield Heights Community Center and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mr. Mano,
Second.
second by Mr. Balestria. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes, is there a motion to approve? Moved by Mrs. Tressi, second by Mr. Balestria. Everyone should have received the quote from Game Time for the purchase of 4 rolling bleachers in the amount of $6,993. This is new legislation and needed for the gym, various activities that we'll be doing. Any questions about these bleachers? Okay, Mrs. Tressi?
I just ask again, what the supply chain issue, why everything is an emergency measure. That's my only comment for bleachers that
Mr.
we
Ward.
won't need for.
The bleachers aren't critical. There's not a lead time like there would be with the chairs, so it doesn't necessarily have to go on an emergency. Might be nice to get the stuff and have it in-house, but
What will you do with it when it arrives? Will it arrive where you have to store it?
yes,
And where will you store it?
probably in the pool garages, current pool garages. So.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else for any questions? Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
No.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. This now has been adopted as well. Resolution number 2023-12. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution 2023-12, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Mighty Light for the purchase of rectangular tables for use in the Mayfield Heights Community Center and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Monaco, second by Mrs. Sabetta. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes, is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Mano, second by Mr. Balestria. This is for the purchase of 4 72-inch rectangular tables for the community center. The total cost of these tables are $1,370.64. The company providing the quote is Mighty Light, and they are also part of this Ohio State cooperative program. Mr. Ward, I just had a question. What were the time frames for these tables? Were those an issue? Okay. Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
No.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. This motion has been carried. Resolution number 2023-13, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution 2023-13, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Veridec for the purchase of screening and planters for use in the Mayfield Heights Community Center and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mr. Monaco, second by Mr. Belstrea. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mrs. Tressi, second by Mr. Belstrea. All members of council should have received the attached proposal. The cost for the privacy screening and outdoor planters would be $5,224.84. This would include a total of 9 privacy screen sets and 10 pedestal long box planters. The company providing this quote is Veridec. And these, all members of council, you saw this evening at the committee of the whole meeting, and this would be under the shade for privacy screenings for the outdoor furniture. Any questions from council? Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
No.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. This resolution has also been passed. We will now move to ordinances, beginning with ordinance number 2023-4. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ordinance number 2023-04, an ordinance amending ordinance number 2021-32, providing for the organization of certain administrative departments and fixing the salaries and bonds for certain officers and employees therein by adding the position of facilities supervisor to Exhibit A, Section 8, and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mrs. Sabetta, second by Mr. Mano. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
No.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Mano, second by Mr. Balestrea. This position would be for a facility supervisor to manage the maintenance, repair, service, and management of the facilities of the grounds of the new community center and aquatic center. Not only would this person oversee the community center, they would oversee the city's facilities as well. This would be a full-time position with benefits. I spoke with Mrs. Augustine, our Human Resource Director, and would like to add that this would be an hourly, non-exempt, non-union position. There will be need for part-timers, as there were already 2 on staff with the old community center. And Mrs. Augustine is here this evening if you'd like to talk to her, ask her some questions, or you'd like to add anything to this. Are there any questions? Mrs. Tracy?
We had that earlier conversation about this, and I think we should table it and have more discussion, or a committee of the whole, or some conversation about what this individual will be doing, how qualified he is. I think council should get to see what that resume is before we go ahead and hire someone. And again, it's an emergency measure, which I understand that we'd want this person to be there when the facility is open, but I think we should take some great care in who we are hiring for this position. It's a big position to manage a $35 million facility plus City Hall. So I'd like to table it.
Okay, I've, to agree that we had this discussion and whose department this person should come out of.
Right,
So
there are a number of
there's been
questions.
a motion to table. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Mano. Roll call on the motion to table.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
No.
Mr. DeJohn.
No.
Mrs. Sabetta.
No.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes?
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. So ordinance number 2023-4 has been tabled. Can we have discussions?
And once it's
All right.
tabled.
Ordinance number 2023-5, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ordinance number 2023-05, an ordinance revising ordinance 2022-28 for the current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Mayfield Heights, State of Ohio, for the fiscal year ending December 31, 2023, by including the open purchase orders as of December 31, 2022, and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mr. Monaco, second by Mr. Belstrade. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes?
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Belstrade,
Second?
second by Mrs. Sabetta. All members of council should have received the email from Mrs. Fagan about this ordinance, as there was some conversation via emails for requesting to provide open POs to council before tonight's meeting. Mrs. Fagan provided that to us over the weekend, and I will turn to you to see if there's anything further that you would like to add.
I think it has been discussed. I consider this a housekeeping matter almost, just to bring over those items from last year that are under contract or in progress that need to be carried over into the '23 budget.
Okay. Does any member of council have any comments or questions? Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mrs. Teresi. Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. This resolution has been approved. We will now move to motions, and I will entertain a motion to add both motion A and B to the agenda. Do I have a motion? Moved by Mr. Balestria. Second by anybody?
Second?
Second by Mrs. Sabetta. Roll call on the motion to add to this agenda.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes?
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes?
Mr. DeJohn.
I don't have a copy, so I'll say yes, but hopefully I can see a copy.
Mr. Monaco.
What? They were emailed.
Mr. Monaco.
You should state the motion.
Well, we received this literally right before, today before the meeting, so I don't have the copies
Are we
in front of me.
voting
They
on
were
it?
supposed to be here. I thought you,
That was an oversight on my part that there is not a physical copy at your places. I do apologize for that. These are two items that came to our attention, and I did send out an email earlier today, this late morning, with this information. I can go over them quickly. There are two motions. Motion A is a replacement generator. It would be authorize the mayor to seek and accept a bid for a new generator for City Hall. As on January 19th, we had a transformer that blew out here in the city. It caused a power failure here at City Hall. The current generator kicked in, but it failed very shortly thereafter, and it is 19 years old and cannot be repaired at this point in time. The purchase of a new generator was discussed during the 2023 budget meetings and was approved. It was estimated for a total of approximately $200,000. At this time, the service department is estimating that the cost of a new generator that will be appropriately sized to service City Hall, police, and fire would be approximately $150,000 plus installation. They are working on getting those quotes, but because of the sensitivity of this, because of the safety forces that are involved, we are asking at this time the council approves for us to go out and solicit and accept bids for the purchase of that generator. If there are any questions that I cannot answer, Mr. Brunello is also here, and he would be able to answer any questions.
Thank you. So that's motion A.
Okay, well, somebody's got to move to make that motion.
We
Some
just
member of
moved.
council.
They did. Mike and
We
Sabetta?
got them both to the table.
And then we roll call. We
I
already
mean,
added them. So
to
I'm
the
giving you
agenda.
this to you to read. Motion A.
Motion A. A motion to authorize the mayor to seek and accept a bid for a new generator for City Hall.
Is there a motion to approve?
Moved.
Moved by Mr. DeJohn, second by Mrs. Sabetta. So you heard the discussion from Mrs. Fagan with regard to this new generator. Service Department has estimated the cost for the new generator to be approximately $150,000 plus installation. So, Mr.
Can I?
Mayor, go
Yeah,
ahead.
thanks, Madam Chair. We've had the discussion with Service and Chief Elliott as soon as this came up. There's extremely long lead time on generators right now, so getting this moving as fast as possible was one of the reasons we added it to the agenda this evening, and we didn't feel like we could wait a couple weeks. Very long lead time, and Chuck, if I could ask Chuck to come up.
Mr. Brunello.
Are we still renting generators, or did we return those?
So the generator that's out back, we have until Thursday. So we rented that generator for the week.
And the expense is?
For that one, that back there was $3,800. That was to come out, set it up. Weekly cost is $1,800, monthly cost is $5,600.
So,
And there's a 26 to 30 week lead time on a new generator.
so in the interest of spending as little money renting as possible, I mean, I suggest we have them come pick it up and still use it on a emergency basis, but who knows when the next emergency would come up. So getting this ordered is top priority.
And this is to the service and police department?
This
City
generator
Hall?
will service City Hall, police, and fire. The service department has their own.
Okay. And that one's okay?
That one is good.
Good. All right, knock on wood. Lots of wood.
Madam President,
Mr. DeJohn.
what generator did we approve several weeks ago? Didn't we approve a generator several weeks? Community center. Oh, was that for the community center? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess you're good. We good? Any more further questions for Mr. Brunello? Okay, thank you. Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes?
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes?
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Motion A has been approved. Moving to motion B, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you. Motion to authorize an advance payment to Windward Design Group in the amount of $23,579.70.
Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mr. DeJohn,
Second?
second by Mrs. Sabetta. Council approved this resolution in 2022-86 on November 14th of '22 for the purchase of pool furniture for the Aquatic and Community Center from Windward Design Group. The vendor requires a 50% deposit at the time of the order. And Mrs. Fagan or Mr. Ward, if there's anything you want to add to this.
I'd be happy to. A prepayment or an advance payment is not something the city normally does. Unfortunately, in this economic environment, we're running into vendors that are requiring it, and we've been trying to negotiate that, no, that is not necessary, but this is one vendor that is requiring it, and whenever anything like this has come up for anything for the community center, I've tried to make sure that it's been pointed out directly to council. This was not pointed out to council at the time of passage, so I want to bring it back as a, just so, to make sure that everybody is aware that it was in there.
Okay. What is the lead time on the Windward furniture? Do you remember? But it was. Okay. And then,
Because there are colors that we're selecting, it's a custom piece of furniture, so they're not going to make it until we put the order in.
so we put the 50% now, and then we pay the rest after it's delivered, or at the time of delivery?
Correct. I think we have a net 30 on the after delivery and after we accept it.
Okay. Thank you.
Madam-
Mr. DeJohn?
And if they don't fulfill the order, what is our recourse?
Then we have Mr. Murphy going after him, and we take legal course after him, which is one of the reasons that the city doesn't normally do that. Once we issue that PO and we sign that PO, PO is our legal document binding us that we have the money set aside for that purchase. Unfortunately, in these economic times, we have more and more vendors that are coming forward and saying, no, that they can't do that. Or if it is a special order, they're looking for that advance payment.
Is there any other options we have? Any other manufacturers out there that?
There are certainly more options, but it's just, it goes back to, this is what we talked about, this is what we agreed to. If we go back, it's just going to be more time. The hope is that we get this stuff in before the pool opens. Knock on wood that the pool is going to be able to open, so we want to have that in time.
And how much is this, how much down are they asking for?
50%. So it's 47 is the total, so it's,
23 something.
thanks, Jimmy.
$23,579.70 that they're looking for now.
Yes.
And did you ask if they would do a third, and a third?
We asked them, listen, Karen gives me heartache when I say that they won't budge in the 50%, and she won't budge either, so.
Good.
It's part of her job.
I like that.
Yeah.
Mrs. Tracy?
And Windward is a vendor through Level Heads, and who,
Yes, so that was the group that we talked, the strap furniture that we selected those colors.
Aileen, okay.
Yes, yep.
Thanks.
Okay. Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Balestria?
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
No.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes. Motion B has been adopted now. Thank you. Is there new business or questions or comments from council? Mrs. Sabetta?
I would just like to announce that there is a neighborhood watch meeting on Thursday, January 26th, here in council chambers, and all the residents are welcome. This is a really good chance to meet your police, your fire, other residents and to have some of your questions and concerns addressed. Thank you.
Mrs. Snyder?
Mrs. Tressi.
I just want to commend our police department for their quick action and helping with the parent on Bellingham and Alcester. They should really be commended for the great, quick job of coming to a resolution before anyone was harmed. So, thanks, Chief. Always on your toes.
I agree.
We appreciate all that you do. And it was wonderful to hear it on the news about how
Absolutely.
great the police department was. So, thank you.
Good press.
Mr. Balestrea.
Yes, I just spoke to Mrs. Teresi and tentatively let council know that we're going to set up that Public Works meeting for Thursday, February the 2nd at 5 p.m. here for the council members that would like to attend. This will be for the road program and sidewalk program, and then anything that we want to call as committee of the whole.
Well, are you able to be
are you
here
available,
that night?
Joe?
Okay, good.
Thank you.
All right.
And then if you want to set up a committee of the whole where we can discuss the other issue, we'll determine that at a later time. But this will be specifically for the road program, so we can get those bids out.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Any other business from council?
Thursday, November 2nd.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Mrs. Sabetta, second by Mrs. Tressi. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are now adjourned.